Mic's off until we have questions at the end, and it's all yours. Take it away. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here with you guys tonight. My name is Talisa Rhea, the general manager with the Seattle Storm. I just completed my first year in that role, but I've been with the Storm for 6 years now. I started off as manager of basketball operations and worked my way up through the operations line, became our assistant GM a few years ago, and then recently was promoted to general manager. I played basketball all through growing up, played in college, actually went to Oregon State and then transferred to Seattle University, and then played overseas. And then I received my master's, I think similar to some of you all, in sports management from the University of Illinois, actually. I did that, and then I came out to Seattle and actually started with the Storm as an intern. And then as I was finishing my master's degree, kind of was right place at the right time, and was offered a full-time role, and was very fortunate with that. And it's kind of led to where I am now. I love being in the Northwest. I grew up a huge Storm fan, so it's been really fun and kind of surreal to now be working with a lot of the players that I grew up watching and working for an organization that I followed so closely growing up. I'm originally from Alaska, so a Pacific Northwesterner through and through. But yeah, now just kind of adjusting to this new role. It's my first full off-season swing as our general manager. And so we are getting ready, obviously, with the college season starting, getting some plans in place for scouting back live this year, which is great. But college scouting is now in full force. And then we're preparing for free agency, which for us starts in January into February. So that's kind of our timeline and what we're working on right now. Got 2021 recapped and kind of buttoned up, and now we're fully moved on to 2022, and even on the business side, business planning now for 2022. And from the team side, also starting to get some plans for what our roster might shape up to be, what our plan is for free agency, and the direction that our team is going. We this past year had a coaching change mid-year. We promoted Noelle Quinn, who was a longtime WNBA player, played for the Storm, had been an assistant coach. So this is her first year going into as a head coach. And so we are super excited and trying to build, her and I working together on our first year going in together on what's next for the Storm. So that is kind of the very short and sweet summary, I guess, of how I got to where I am now. Would love to answer questions, or if you have any topics you would like to discuss or anything, or you want to tell me a little bit more about your group and what you guys do. I'll kind of open it up back to you guys.
Yeah, I can go first here. Can you tell us a little bit about the transition from being a player to becoming a general manager?
For sure. There was, a lot. Just, I think anyone who's, done something for a long time, then when you change to anything, it's, figuring out kind of my identity for so long was being an athlete. And so I think transitioning to being done playing, you kind of go through a process of what you're interested in and what, you see your future kind of going. So it was a long process. I love that I'm still involved in basketball. That has really helped with the transition from playing. I feel, still a part of a team, still a part of an organization. But definitely now being to this point, there's just a lot. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made, management, but it's still similar in the sense that we're, still a part of a team, still trying to collaborate towards a common goal, still have a lot of the same elements that would be like a foundation of being a part of a team or being a player. But now I just am kind of on the other side of that.
And what made you, like, when did you realize that you wanted to move to the other side, to the more management side from being a player?
I was overseas. I came back from overseas. I was kind of waiting for another opportunity overseas. And I just felt, I wasn't fully into playing anymore. I kind of wanted to start whatever was next. And that's when I decided to actually go back and get my master's. And that kind of gave me a little bit of time to, further my education, learn about additional opportunities, but also take some time to think about the direction that I wanted to go. And I actually thought I would go into coaching. I kind of thought that my whole life. It was very kind of a seamless from a player to a coach, made a lot of sense. But the more I learned about the different opportunities within sports, not only at the college level, the professional level, I became really interested in the operations and kind of the behind the scene, how everything worked. There was just so many different roles that play a part in a team or an organization that I wasn't really aware of. And so I really enjoyed my master's time, getting my master's degree, because I learned about a lot of those things. And I was kind of exposed to some different areas for the first time. And so that kind of started me on this track of wanting to go down the operations side. I definitely had, a dream of one day becoming a general manager. I didn't think it would happen quite this fast. I feel very fortunate to be part of the Storm, and my boss and our ownership are great in supporting me and helping me kind of along this journey. But it's kind of a long answer to say I wasn't really sure I would end up in this point, but kind of as I've gone through different phases of my life, I'm kind of refined what that, interest and end goal is.
And you said that you got your master's to help you go down this path, but was there anybody that like helped you or mentored you or really drove you towards this as well?
Yeah, I think, my coaches along the way opened the door for a lot of things, a lot of conversations, and just building my network of, it started with former coaches for me, former operations folks, former, just people who are in the business. And I was lucky to be able to make some connections that way. And really it was just about kind of providing the most opportunities that I could for myself. And I felt like going back to school would help me do that. And then it was through kind of networking and connections that I actually came across like this opportunity with the Storm to intern. And from there, it was just the relationship building and the work that I did during that internship that led to the full-time role when it became open as the manager of basketball operations with the Storm. And then have just slowly worked my way up over the past 6 years. So I think it's a combination of a lot of people, but I feel lucky to have created a network in the way that I have just throughout my time in college and post-college as well.
All right, anybody that wants to ask a question, use the hand raise emoji and we can call on you to ask your question just to make it a little more. Here, let's see. And if not, I have plenty of questions I can ask. So I can go all day. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? Go ahead.
Yeah. Are you the one negotiating like player contracts? Is that what are your roles and responsibilities with the organization?
Yeah, great question. I am definitely these past couple of years as assistant general manager, I was involved in the process, but not, obviously the primary general manager doing that. But yeah, now I am fully responsible for that piece of it, working with agents and players and trying to attract new free agents that we're targeting, but also trying to work on contracts and extending those players that we currently have with the Storm. So that is a huge part of what I do. Also, final decisions on draft picks. When we cut down to our final roster, making those decisions as well, based on who we have in training camp and making those final roster cuts. So the roster development is a huge part of the general manager job. I think a couple other key areas of my responsibility would just be overseeing our basketball staff at a whole, our coaching staff, our support staff, our operations, equipment managers, video coordinators, as well as our medical staff. And I really, just try to be a resource for them in supporting them throughout the season and preparing for the season. So that's also a huge part of it. And then obviously supporting the players and doing anything we can to make their time as easy and seamless so that they can just focus on playing. And we really, at the Storm, pride ourselves on providing a great experience for them and making sure that they have all the resources they need to be successful.
So it looked like we had one in the chat. What is the hardest part of working on the management side of basketball?
I think, it probably isn't specific to just basketball, but I think management is, you get a lot of input from a lot of people, and there's a lot of really tough decisions to be made. But I think one thing is, how do you take a situation where you have maybe 3 or 4 different opinions and collaborate and work together to come up with the decision that you feel like is best for the team moving forward. And sometimes that can be a really challenging piece. But I think managing in a way where everyone feels like their voice is being heard and respected, and we're taking all things into consideration. And really, the end goal is making sure that everyone has the same goal and the same, motivation to put the team in the best place to be successful, and that there aren't individuals, wavering from that. So I think it's just working with people and understanding that everyone has different perspectives to bring to the table, which is awesome. That's why we, have staffs, and we try to get a diverse group of perspectives. It makes us all better. But then, on the flip side, managing that is, I would say, is one of the harder parts.
What would you say to somebody that is trying to follow in your footsteps, maybe not as a player, but becoming a GM? What kind of advice would you give them trying to do that?
I think the biggest thing is it's about relationships, and whether that's networking now, making informational interview requests just to get to know people. I think that's the most important thing. And in sports, everything is so connected, and there's a good chance that someone knows someone who knows someone, and it seems like there's always less than a few degrees of separation. So I think taking advantage of that and trying to build your network, and then in your experiences, whatever you're doing, really trying to invest in that relationship and take full advantage of the experience. And we have a couple internships with the Storm, and I tell our interns, the same thing at the beginning of the year, that this is your experience and you're going to basically get out of it what you put in. And so just working really hard and being someone who is high integrity and respects everyone around them. I think that's really important, and it helps you build those relationships that will help down the road.
There's a couple in the chat there if you want to read them.
Okay, sure. What was it like being promoted to GM after winning a championship? Definitely was unexpected. Obviously, it's awesome to win a championship. I've been fortunate enough to win 2 now with the Storm. But coming off of a championship, there's obviously a target on your back going into the next season. And we had lost a few key players and really tried to keep our core together as much as possible. So our roster looked different going into last year, but I think it's just, kind of like what I've said, just really empowering the people that we have, both the players and the staff, to really just own it and accept the fact that, things are going to be a little bit harder when you're the defending champs, but taking that as a challenge and trying to work through it. Obviously, we fell a little bit short this year, but we, try every year to build our team to a championship level. And coming off of a championship, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of hype, and that can also go to your advantage. And so we try to use that as well. But says, what characteristics have you developed as a result of working in the sports industry? I think sports teaches you, a work ethic that is, maybe not as common in other areas, but the ability to really manage your time, prioritize your time. Being around sports, you definitely have to be willing to work hard, be willing to work extended hours, be willing to do things that might not be, typically a part of your job description. I think we all end up kind of going above and beyond. At least I think there's opportunity to do that, but also opportunity to learn about some other areas within the sports industry, which I think is also really important. I think it's that, and I think it's relationships, and especially, growing up in team sports, you're working with your teammates, so much, and have to find a way to respect them and trust them and communicate effectively with them. And I think all of those things translate to then working in sports. And it's the same thing. It's very team oriented, the success of the team being important as opposed to just the success of one individual. So I think those are some key, fundamental blocks that definitely transition into working in sports, and even if not in sports, working in your professional life. My biggest takeaway from playing overseas, it was an awesome experience, to kind of move to another country. I was in Poland, and just kind of dive right into their culture. We had 3 other Americans on the team, and then the rest of the team was Polish. The coach didn't speak great English, so that presented some challenges, and just getting through practices and games and just understanding how they played and what the culture was like. But it was, it's getting paid to play basketball, which was like the ultimate dream, and I definitely enjoyed it and did not take it for granted. But that was a great experience, and also just to see how a sports team or league functions in another country was also really cool.
There is another. I was about to ask any more. There's one more in the chat there.
Okay. You made a great transition from being an athlete into your post-sports career. What are your thoughts on the resources and programs available to athletes to prepare? Is there anything? That's a great question. I think a lot has changed in this area in terms of resources that are available to student athletes. I think one of the things that's challenging is because there's so much time dedicated to practices and games and all that, it can be challenging to take advantage of some other work experiences, maybe an internship or having a part-time job on the side. I think that's one thing that some students who aren't participating in a sport maybe have 20 hours a week that they're able to put into an internship and get some experience that way. I think that's just kind of the reality, but I think there's a lot of career building opportunities, a lot of networking made available to student athletes. I think, especially dependent on the university, some obviously do a better job than others, but I think that it's become something that universities understand is really important, and positioning student athletes to be successful once their playing career is done is really a priority for them. And I think that's great. The more that they can network with professionals, and even if it's not going into sports, if they're interested in finance and they can meet people while they're in college, I think it's all about starting your network and learning about what those different opportunities might be. So we had a little bit of that when I was playing, definitely at Oregon State we did. And I think that's, kind of all you can do is be involved in clubs like you all are, having conversations like you all are, and just taking advantage of those opportunities when they come your way.
Do you have any more questions there? Looks like that's all of our questions. Thank you so much again for joining us and giving us all that insight.
Yeah, no problem. Did anyone camp out and go to I saw about the Texas game, there was tent city.
186 tents, yeah, most ever.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think that's why a lot of people are texting in right now, because there's a men's game starting in about 30 minutes.
Gotcha. That's important for sure. That I've never been to a game over there, but it's definitely a bucket list.
Hey,
item.
you let me know, and I'll make sure you get in if you come over here.
I appreciate that. Well, good luck to your team. I know the women's team has a big game against Stanford this weekend, which is also exciting, but I'm happy to, Chris, I don't know if you want to send out my email, or I can put it in the chat if anyone has any other questions, or if I can be of assistance in any other way. I'm happy to provide that, whatever the best way would be.
I can put it in an email and send it to the people that are in here, because we'll send the recording of this out anyway.
Okay.
So I can send it all in all at once there. And thank you again for being so great and coming in. And like I said, you let me know if you want to come to a game. I'll make sure you get in.
For sure, will do. Thanks all. Have a good night.
You too.